It's time now for perspective. As you heard just there, it is 5 years to the day since a series of terrorist attacks here in Paris left 130 people dead and many more with life-changing injuries, not to mention post-traumatic psychological trauma. This difficult anniversary coming as France once again finds itself the target of a series of jihadist attacks. My guest today is Guillaume Denoix de Marc, founder and president of the French Association for Victims of Terrorism. Thank you very much for being with us today on France 24.
Thank you.
It's now 5 years since that terrible night, a series of attacks that shook the city, that shocked France, the world. Do you think Paris, France, has come to terms with what happened that night?
Anyway, it was a hard lesson learned for France, because we had to change all the system of how we were providing support to the victims of terrorism. Yes, we did the job. During 5 years, everything has been rebuilt. It's a very long term to bring the victims back to society. It's a very complicated job, and we try to do it the best we can together with the government and the NGOs around as our association. The purpose is to bring the victims back to society, and then why not bringing them to be active and accept what happened and make it as a added value on their capacities.
And how concretely do you go about bringing people back into society, people who've gone through such trauma?
First, we bring them to meet with other victims, not from the same event, but from other events. For them to be in a capacity to explain what they suffered from, what they suffer every day, and to share it with other persons who are able to understand, because they went through the same trauma maybe a few years ago before, or something different somewhere else in the world. And this is a way with professionals around to bring the victims to be able to speak about what they suffered to a person who suffered the same thing, and then to bring them to explain it to the population, and to be in the capacity to rebuild bridges, to be with others, and to discuss and to explain, because we need to explain what we go through, because nobody understands us as victims. So we have to educate the population, which is something strange, and we have to get back to society, first in the family, then into the work, the society itself, and this is a very complicated and long process, and we do it step by step, and it's tailor-made for each victim.
And the trauma that you're talking about, how does that sort of trauma manifest itself? Presumably there are lots of different ways in which victims, survivors come to terms with what they've experienced.
I would say the best image I can say is that we have the feeling that we are observing ourselves, but we're not living. We, as we have a camera looking at us, we're not in the real life. We're a bit apart from life. And we have to come back in our own body and to accept the situation, and to be living again, not surviving. Surviving means we're not living; we are just surviving, and we have no project. So it's really a process in which we have to adapt to make ours the trauma we have. So it's an interior work to be able to come back to the others, because we have to make the peace with ourselves first.
Now, the events of that night are going to be on trial as of January, 5 years after the events. What are you hoping to achieve during this trial? How important is this trial for you and other victims of terrorism?
The trial is always a very important step in the work to go back to society, and it's going to be a very long process, because the trials will stay for 6 months. So during 6 months we're going to be in a trial. It's going to be from September starting in September 2021. And we are trying to get ready for that. We're trying to bring the victims to have experience from other victims who already had a trial. And we're going to do everything we can for it to be as positive as it can be. It's one step forward in the process, but it can be also a very difficult process. So we have to get ready and to be prepared.
Now, there has been a lot of anger in the Muslim world in recent weeks at President Macron's robust defence of the freedom to offend, the freedom to mock religion, including the Prophet Muhammad. What do you think of President Macron's stance these past weeks?
I think it's very important that we understand each other and we understand the values of our societies. Our societies can be different, but we have some values that we have to defend. It's a process that we had in Europe and in France in particular during many decades, I would say centuries, and it's all a process in which we are very proud, and it's an equilibrium in which we have to keep this equilibrium to go forward. So we have to defend these values in which we believe, the way of our society, the way it works, and we have to defend all these values that are part of our identity. Of course, we should not offend the others, but we have to keep our values in our country as much as we can.
And 5 years on from the attacks of the 13th of November, is there any one message you'd like to share with our viewers today?
I think the message is we have to be we have to discuss between the societies and individuals. We have to admit that we don't have the same beliefs, but we can still discuss about our beliefs with others. It's very important that we respect each other's, but we also accept that we don't think the same way. And that's why we're trying to do an international federation of associations of victims of terrorism, because it's a best way for us to build bridges between our different societies through the victims of terrorism. It's a sort of diplomacy of the victims of terrorism. We are from different religion, different background, different identity, different colors of skin, but we are like brothers and sisters all over the world through the trauma that we had, the same trauma we had by being a victim of terrorism.
Guillaume Denoix de Saint-Marc, I'm so sorry, we have run out of time. Guillaume Denoix de Saint-Marc, thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24 today.